please welcome Karan Bhatta.
Welcome, everybody. I'm so excited to be here this week at Cloud World and talk a lot about all the different things we're going to do. So this session, what we wanted to do was talk about Oracle Database at Azure, right? The new service that we announced last week, and dig into the details of that. But before we did that, I wanted to sort of step back a little bit and talk about how we got here, right? That means really talking about a multi-cloud and our distributed cloud strategy. So if you step back a little bit, public cloud is great. It provides you all the flexibility, it provides you efficiency, provides you scalability. But it's not enough, right? The numbers are sort of debatable, 20%, 25%, maybe 30%. But the penetration of cloud into essentially, the penetration of on-prem into cloud is debatable. It's not completely there yet. And over the past 15 years, not a lot of workloads have moved into the cloud. A lot of workloads are still on-premise. And the reason for that is not because customers don't want to move to the cloud. They actually do. But there's other reasons why they may not be able to do so. Whether it's things like migration issues, security or compliance posture, could be things like performance or latency, or just plain inertia that allows them to not move to the cloud. We at Oracle wanted to build and deploy a cloud that can be run by anybody, it could be operated by anybody, and it's interoperable with all the other different clouds. We wanted to make sure that our cloud worked with every other cloud, and that's really our distributed cloud strategy. Next slide. I think somebody lost the batteries here. Talking about all the different kinds of portfolio of offerings that we have today, we have a wide range of products and services that span multitude of services. Everything from public cloud regions all the way back to bringing cloud to you in your data center, in your facility. That could include things like dedicated region. It could include things like Alloy. It could include things like Compute Cloud at Customer, and obviously our database offerings like Exadata as well. All of these services and offerings provide you the same level of expertise, the same feature set, the same functionality, the same SLAs, the same pricing models that you would expect out of a normal OCI region as well. Talking about regions, we've put a lot of effort over the past 7 years in all of our regions. We now have over 64 regions globally across our public cloud regions, our national security and defense regions, our government regions, DRCCs that we've launched with customers across the board. We've made incredible investments. I feel like only 7 years ago, we launched our first region in Phoenix in OCI, and now we're standing here with almost 64 regions, with another 11 planned over the course of the next 12 to 18 months. We're soon going to be in hundreds of regions across the globe in the future. So as we've made progress on these regions, we've made the progress to actually build upon DRCC and Alloy as well by making that much more modular, much more flexible. So we also launched our EU Sovereign Cloud last year, these cloud regions are really designed and operated for data resiliency, data privacy, and digital sovereignty as well. These enforce data resiliency with a very logical and physical separation from all of our other regions as well. And again, just to highlight the fact that all of these regions still give you all of the OCI services that you'd expect out of a public cloud region. They give you the same SLAs, same performance details, and also the same pricing mechanisms as well. Again, Oracle is an application company, so we also provide customers the ability to run things like Fusion or other applications from Oracle on top of these sovereign regions as well. We've also invested very heavily in our air-gapped regions and our top secret and defense regions, with now ability to give you FedRAMP High and DoD Impact Level 5 as well. And then finally, we also launched our Australian Government Cloud, which obviously makes OCI now the only provider that has a government region outside of the US as well. And again, just to highlight the fact that all of these regions come with identical set of services that can be accessed with the same APIs and the same tools. Obviously, we spent a lot of time building our regions. At its peak, we were launching about a region every 20 days. For us to have the ability to do that, we had to make a lot of different investments in our regions. We had to make sure the regions could be compact, they could be modular, we could expand them as we needed, we had to make them efficient. So we started with 50 racks a couple of years ago with dedicated region. It used to take you a few months, about half a megawatt of space. And now we've made significant investments in our public region build that we can launch these dedicated regions with a dozen racks and a few weeks of build time. Customers have really, really liked our offering for dedicated region. It allows them to transform internal IT and all of their workloads sitting right side by side their on-premise infrastructure as well. We started a couple of years ago with NRI in Japan, really transforming their internal IT and moving database workloads into the cloud, and also building new cloud-native applications. And then recently, we hit a milestone where we launched 6 dedicated regions across Europe for Vodafone, completely transforming their internal IT. So customers love DRCC, obviously, but a lot of our customers were also partners. They wanted to build value on top and provide them to their customers as well. They have value-added services that they would like to be able to provide alongside the infrastructure that OCI also provides, sitting right next to it. And so we launched Oracle Alloy last year. We announced it last year, and we're actually making it generally available this week at CloudWorld. And so customers will have the ability to brand it, extend it, and also operate it themselves based on what their needs are, whether it's data sovereignty, whether it's other kinds of needs. We obviously talked about TIM last year as a launch customer for Alloy. We're obviously very excited to partner again with NRI. NRI has been a long-term dedicated region customer with 2 dedicated regions in Japan for their internal IT purposes. We're now partnering with them to provide Alloy for their government workloads as well. Coming to multi-cloud. So, we at Oracle obviously believe that customers should have the flexibility and choice to pick the best of breed from any cloud provider and use it on any cloud provider. And we've been working on that multi-cloud plan for a long, long time. The way it sort of used to work in on-premises, right, is that you buy different pieces of items and software and hardware from different vendors, and you bring it all together into an on-prem environment, whether it's a private cloud or whether it's hybrid or whether it's just your own data center deployment. And there's a lot of FUD around multi-cloud, right? Everything from regions are really far apart to performance and latency is a challenge, to commercial inflexibility. You have to work with different vendors for different contracts, or simply vendors just pitching one-stop shop for their cloud. And that makes sense to some certain extent, but multi-cloud is not a choice. Customers are going to demand it, right? So it's not a question of if, it's a matter of when. And at Oracle, we truly believe that multi-cloud is not just one product, it's a host of investments across a several-year period. And so that's why we partnered with Microsoft. It totally made sense with the sort of the customer base that Microsoft and Oracle has across enterprise customers and a focus towards enterprise customers over the last several years. Now, breaking down sort of what we did with them over the last several years in 2019, we decided to pick the biggest issue that is the biggest blocker to multi-cloud, and that was data movement, data egress challenges. And so we decided that we would connect our clouds together in locations where we have proximity in regions. And so standing here today, we have over 12 regions now that are interconnected with Microsoft, where customers are able to move data freely between the 2 clouds and build applications and workloads across the 2 clouds. We then moved that partnership to last year, where we actually launched ODSA. This was an experience for Oracle customers to better integrate and use Oracle Database Services with Azure, and by having the ability to integrate more into things like monitoring and auditing and logs and networking layer. And then last week, what we actually announced is essentially the next step of this partnership, right? Where Larry and Satya got together at Microsoft, and they really talked about what customers really wanted. And so this is the experience that customers have been asking for, that's been sort of, that solves a lot of different challenges and feedback that we got from the interconnect and the ODSA products as well. So with Oracle Database at Azure, Microsoft Azure now becomes the second cloud provider to provide Oracle data services to their customers, right? Customers that have massive investments in Azure, but they also have huge Oracle investments on premise are now able to use these services to the full extent. So to talk a little bit more about this, I'd like to invite Corey Sanders to stage from Microsoft.
Okay. Hello, Karan.
Hello.
Good to see you. All right.
Well, thanks for making the journey, Corey.
Absolutely. You mean across the stage? It was a nice little jog.
Yeah.
There we go.
So again, we've been working on this for a long, long time, starting in 2019. It's been a great journey. Of course, I think it was a monumental event having Larry and Satya together last week.
Yeah.
What do you think the reception been?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been great. I've been excited to hear customers respond very positively to the opportunity to leverage services that span our two clouds and create sort of a full application experience.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. So what I wanted to do was talk a little bit about all the different portions of the solution that customers have really been sort of asking for us to solve, right? Starting with the biggest one, which is latency and performance,
Yeah.
right? Can you talk a little bit about why latency is such a big issue in terms of like the applications that customers are building?
Yeah, we've seen this with a lot of the applications that span our two companies and our two offerings, and the need for very fast, very low latency connection from the database into the middle tier or the application tier is critical. It's something that's actually blocked a lot of customers from being able to leverage things like the interconnect to be able to get that really fast connection. And so I do think it's a great opportunity for some of those really highly performant or very latency sensitive applications, chatty applications as it were, to be able to take advantage of this offering and this partnership.
That makes sense. And so, I mean, obviously we've been meeting a lot of customers, but we've also been talking to a lot of analysts. I think there's also questions around, well, what's the actual delta between what we have been doing to what we are doing now? Like, how are the offerings different between, like, let's say ODSA and what we're doing now?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a few things, right? I think there's probably three big categories that we've talked about. Latency is one, and sort of as you can see from the slide, going from milliseconds to microseconds is a nice jump in sort of latency improvement. Certainly from a overall experience perspective, a unified experience, being able to have your monitoring, to be able to have your operations, to be able to deploy all in the same environment is quite compelling. And then certainly commercial, which we'll talk about in a bit, as sort of the third one. So these are three big areas that I think we've dramatically improved from the interconnect.
Yeah, and I think the big difference also is the fact that this is probably the first time that we're actually expanding OCI directly into Azure data centers, right? So is there a path that you see where customers would use both the interconnect and this solution? Absolutely.
I mean, I think, based on the customer application requirements, latency requirements, et cetera, I think there's definitely an opportunity to leverage both, and hopefully the fantastic naming difference, the @ sign, will let you know which one's which, and so Oracle Database at Azure will be the Q.
That's true. That is true. So obviously with Oracle Database customers, there's a lot of focus on high availability, disaster recovery. Obviously we have regions that we'll talk about that will be available, but how do we think about that in terms of what we're doing today and how we're going to expand OCI into Azure? How do you think about the ETRDR story here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the benefits about our deployment plans is we do expect to deploy multiple availability zones. I think you call them something different, but
I think you copied us, right?
I don't know who. We don't need to get into that right now. But the same concept exists with slightly different names, and it basically will allow you to deploy an application that can leverage the sort of two concepts of a split data center or two data centers, and it'll be important because you'll want your application components and your data components to not be spanning that when you think about your sort of failover capabilities on an HA side, and so that is a key component, and it's why one of the aspects of our deployment plans is to always deploy into at least two of our data centers in a given region.
That makes sense. So let's moving on to things like platform interoperability. Now, we did some of this in ODSA, right? We integrated some of the networking layers. We had things like analytics and some of the database logs showing up. Can you talk a little bit about some of the, I guess, positives of the experience through Azure when you're using some of these services from a platform integration standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, What's really exciting is you're able to go into the Azure Marketplace. You're able to purchase what you need here from Oracle. You're able to then deploy directly into that and from that environment, set up the security, set up the configuration, set up the networking, set up monitoring into a single dashboard. The ability to do all of that within that single view, within that single experience. It is what we've heard customers ask for, and that's one of the really big exciting changes here. Working together, we're developing those unified experiences that will sort of bring those Oracle experiences front and center into the Azure portal.
That totally makes sense. So customers that are already existing Azure customers won't see really a difference in terms of the experience if they were to use any other Azure service for that matter.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, it's, if you were just to go and deploy Cosmos DB or SQL Server, am I allowed to say SQL Server? Let's say Cosmos DB, and you would deploy that within the Azure portal, it's going to be the very, very similar experience as what you'd get now deploying.
Right, and if I'm a developer of Azure, generally portal is not the only place from a input standpoint, right? Or is all the tooling going to be available? Right. SDKs, APIs?
Absolutely. Tooling, SDK, sort of PowerShell scripts, right? All of those will be supported, full API access. So it's going to look, feel, and really be manageable in the same way any Azure service would be.
Fantastic. So I think probably the biggest thing that we've heard from customers is probably commercial flexibility. Mm-hmm. Right? Having the ability to actually use your Microsoft commitments, or as you guys call them, MAC, to consume, purchase Oracle database services.
Right.
Right? So is that being sort of the biggest issue that you see?
Yeah, I mean, certainly all of the issues we talked about, but I think most customers have deep relationships with both of us, and so the ability to leverage your Azure commitments to be able to then purchase an Oracle database at Azure is a fantastic opportunity to take advantage of things you've already committed to. And likewise, I think on the Oracle support option and being able to take those benefits and apply them in the same way. And so getting, again, those two sort of existing contracts that you've managed and you've established with us and leverage them all in one place.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for customers to get the best of both worlds, right? They have an existing relationship with Oracle that allows them all the different programs, whether it's BYOL or their existing ULA, and even the support rewards that allows them essentially credits back towards a support bill, even by using the database services, the Oracle database services through Azure.
Right.
So I think that's a massive benefit for customers. Again, they already have existing commitments in Microsoft, so all it really takes is for them to log in and launch an Exadata server.
I mean, put simply, from a commercial perspective, the goal is that you feel like all of the agreements you have with Microsoft apply, and all the agreements you have with Oracle apply in the same place, and that's really quite an amazing benefit.
That is, and then again, this flows through the rest of the ecosystem, whether it's things like cost management or billing. Now again, this is just OCI running under the covers, so it actually allows you to use the existing tools if you're already an OCI customer to be able to go do that. But if you're an Azure customer, all of those metrics and billing flows come through, so you can see what you're being charged and what you're being used as well.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Cool. So I think the more exciting part, as well, is the fact that customers are going to be able to essentially use the other types of services that Azure offers. Of course, they can do that on the OCI side as well. But can you talk a little bit about some of the different kinds of services and things that customers have been asking for, Microsoft customers have been asking for to attach to their Oracle database? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, as we look at many customers who are doing this migration and going through this journey, a lot of the services that they're looking to either deploy on top of or extend an existing application, certainly some of the application services like Kubernetes, so our AKS service, app services for sort of building out websites or building out event-based solutions. But one of the ones that sort of has picked up a lot of steam and energy, and in fact we'll show a little bit later, has been the AI services, right? To be able to leverage Azure OpenAI on top of an Oracle database at Azure running within the same data center, within the same security boundary, or cognitive services, leveraging sort of machine learning on top of it. These are some of the things that we're seeing just a whole lot of energy and excitement around, even sort of leveraging Microsoft Fabric and being able to bring together some of the Azure data analytics-based services with some of the Oracle database capabilities all in one place is really been quite compelling for customers.
That's good. And then I think, with moving, of course, the teams have been working together for several years, and I think at this point we have a lot of experience. Too many years. So I think at this point we have a lot of experience in support and ops. How do we manage these customers jointly? How do we make sure that they have a first-class ops experience or support experience? Can you talk a little bit about what we're going to do better in this partnership?
I'll start with operations, and then we can add support. From an operations side, this is one of the things that I think is also quite exciting because this is all running within one environment. We're able to offer a complete end-to-end secure experience, right? And so that includes the operations security and sort of the work that we're doing across the two companies to ensure the highest level of security operations, including the networking operations and network security, and then of course all the way up into the platform security capabilities that we offer. And so from an operations down all the way up to the platform support, this end-to-end security sort of goes hand in hand with that latency support and expectations that customers have when they deploy. And so that's been a really exciting part of the partnership and working really closely together on how that ops will work. And then that feeds into the support side, right? We've worked jointly together in making sure that we have the right support engagement, the right support handoff, such that you can engage with either of our support teams when issues may happen. Because certainly with complex apps that we're talking about, deploying an Exadata with AKS on top and Azure OpenAI on delivering some sort of Copilot experience, there's a lot of factors that are going to be involved, and so making sure that our two support organizations are deeply aligned is a key factor and key requirement for us.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And I think, and to sort of remind the audience, right, it's still, again, OCI under the covers, running inside an Azure data center, so it's still run, managed, operated by OCI. And so you actually get the same set of benefits that you would in OCI, whether it's the same security controls, the compliance benefits, and then things like performance and SLAs and the same actually pricing parity across the two, which I think we missed in the commercial part. So there's going to be pricing, feature parity, et cetera, across the board, across two clouds.
Yeah, right? And if you have any support issues, stay after. I'll give you Karan's phone number, and you can just call him.
Well, I think Copilot will directly...
And then Copilot will direct it back to me.
Back to you.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's how we'll work that.
Exactly. Cool. So enough of us talking.
Yes,
so
I think they're ready for us to stop talking,
exactly,
I think, at this point.
Exactly.
Yes, okay, great.
I think let's bring on a customer.
Absolutely.
We'll talk a little bit about what their experience is. So let's include Marino from Voya. Hey. Thank you for joining us, Marino. It's really, really awesome to have you here, an actual real customer that can talk a little bit about, what it's like to sort of, what your reaction was, and also like what you actually do.
Well, thank you. First and foremost, I didn't think I'd ever be on the stage with both Oracle and Microsoft. So hopefully I'm the first customer.
You and me both.
One of the first customers. So super excited about that. My initial reaction was, this is great, right? Just because, you guys touched on it. It's customers have been asking. It's a problem statement. Generally, we go to one or another vendor. This is a unique case where two of our major vendors came together to really solve a problem. And quite honestly and ironically, we've been down many paths over the last 6 to 12 months on how do we solve for our Oracle footprint. We're primary Azure cloud, not that we don't think we'll be in a hybrid mode, we're primary Azure today. Big Oracle footprint. I had a small technical army scheduled to meet last week to specifically try to solve these problems and chart our path forward after many POCs. So this announcement was very timely and very exciting for us. So it gives us an opportunity to kind of take a look at things a lot differently. So
that's fantastic. So can you maybe perhaps describe, and of course you talked about the fact that you have a big Oracle footprint on-prem. Can you kind of describe what you're doing? What are some of the products you're doing or some of the services that you're using on top?
Yeah, absolutely. So and maybe I'll back up a little bit just from a Voya perspective. We are health, wealth, and investment management company. We've gone through a pretty big transformation over the last 10 to 14 years. We IPO'd as a company about 10 years ago. So we were a subsidiary of Global ING, US subsidiary. So we're a brand, I would say a fairly new brand overall, and certainly new. We've repositioned, we've shed capital intensive businesses, and we focused it on those 3 business lines, and we continue to evolve and think about ourselves as a tech-enabled company. Many of our products, in kind of easy format, are there to support employees like yourselves at Oracle, Microsoft, and many companies with 401k, retirement planning, health plans, et cetera. Many of our workloads and websites, mobile applications are pretty heavy processing and pretty intense processing. We built them over the years, so we've got some new, some old, like a lot of companies, and they're, as you guys highlighted, pretty latency intensive, right? Our threshold is about 2 milliseconds. So if you think about hundreds of applications, Oracle and Exadata specifically supports about 70% of that workload. So we're a pretty big shop, and that's, we also leverage Oracle in our ERP and EPM world as well. But it's a big kind of component to our footprint.
Okay, and what about your sort of, I mean, you obviously talked about the fact that you're already using, Azure as well. Yeah. How does this change? How does a new model change from a commercial standpoint, but also from a architectural standpoint, right? I mean, you talked about Exadata on-prem. Now you'll have the ability to consume Exadata through Azure. How does that thought process change, kind of like before and after? I think you talked slightly a little bit about that, but. Yeah,
so certainly, given what I mentioned, Exadata is critical to us in that environment, just from a performance perspective and stability perspective and resiliency perspective. So we're super sensitive about how we migrate and where we migrate. If I think about kind of the Azure and Oracle kind of connection, I think this gives us an opportunity to migrate. Like I think you guys mentioned, one of our, and probably a lot of companies haven't migrated, predominantly because it's complicated. And now when you get into the crown jewel applications, there's not a huge appetite for risk, right? So we are comfortable. We have one of our businesses of the 3 that I mentioned already running on Azure 100%. So we're comfortable with our ability to run and manage an Azure environment. Now married, and we're comfortable with our ability on-prem to manage an Exadata environment along with Oracle. This really brings it together. I think the thing that is also different, we've expended an enormous amount of technical capacity to try to solve the problem. If this is an opportunity where that enables that, not only does it get us faster to the cloud, but post all of this, it allows us and our technical people to focus on more business value, right? Exercises. AI, as many of you talk, is taken on a life of its own in the last 6 months. So we'd rather be focusing on business enablers as much as possible.
Instead of focusing on the deep technical, actually.
Deep technical engineering.
Let us focus on that, and you can then worry about your business.
Exactly.
Yeah, you slightly mentioned AI there, so I'm curious, what are you guys doing in that space? I mean, I guess, putting 2 companies together from an Oracle Microsoft standpoint, but also your AI strategy. Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing in that space?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, absolutely. So we're like everybody, I think, ChatGPT and OpenAI put sort of a face on AI. So we've been doing, machine learning and AI kind of for many years in one format. We leverage a lot of, machine learning and data capabilities straight off of Azure. I would say with generative AI, like everyone else, we've got multiple POCs. In fact, we've spun up Sandbox via Azure and continue to kind of leverage that and evolve use cases as rapidly as we can. I think the other thing that's actually interesting in this is, so you've got data that's in, and most of our data, as I mentioned, 70% of our workloads in Oracle. As we progress our AI journey, I could envision like easier leveraging of that data, right? We're not replicating across clouds. You guys potentially have, sort of made hybrid cloud a little bit more seamless for customers like us.
That's great.
Well, thank you for being a big Oracle customer and talking a little bit about.
And an Azure customer.
And of course, of course. Well, thank you again so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
And we will see you back here. So we talked a little bit about, how some of these things are going to help customers, right? We talked about the details, but I actually think bringing Phil out here to talk about the real demo and what this actually looks like in action would be pretty cool. So let's bring out Phil.
Hey, Karan.
Oh. So what are we going to see, Phil?
All right, today I'm going to walk you through 3 parts of Oracle Database for Azure. We're going to talk first about how you get started. You talked a lot about getting the benefits of both your Microsoft relationships and your Oracle relationships, so we'll cover that. We'll look at the basics of provisioning and managing Exadata systems inside of Oracle Database for Azure, and then we'll show one of the simple integrations of connecting to an Exadata system from a VM.
So here I'm in Azure. I'm an Azure customer. I've logged in, and this is the experience that I would see if I was to just log in and launch a database.
Yeah, so there's 2 ways that you can do this. One is you can just start using Oracle Database for Azure. But if you want to benefit from all of the things that we were talking about, like getting support rewards, getting access to your ULA, getting custom pricing, what you'll do is you'll work with your sales rep just like you would for anything else with Oracle, and then we're actually using the Azure Marketplace to transact that into your Microsoft account. So what will happen is after you've worked with your account team, they'll extend a private offer to you. And this is what one of these private offers looks like. Looking at this private offer, you can see some of the terms of the private offer. So for example here, what you'll see is this one is for $820,000 of credits over 3 years. But the key thing I want to highlight here is you see this Azure benefit eligible. This means that you can actually use your Azure credits, your Azure commitment, to pay for that Oracle database in Azure, even though you've also worked with your Oracle account team to get that stood up. Once you've finished this, you can go ahead and purchase this. This essentially installs the agreement into your Microsoft account.
Got it.
We'll go ahead, we'll name it, and then we'll create it. And then you're pretty much all set to go.
So what's actually happening under the covers? It says SaaS subscription in process here.
Yeah, so when I click Create Account now, what's actually happening is we're calling into OCI, we're creating an OCI tenancy and an OCI account for you that will work with your Azure subscription to power Oracle Database at Azure. And if you choose to use some of the tools that we have in OCI, those will just leverage that tenancy and they'll work for you just fine. The security stuff you were talking about, also powered by that Oracle tenancy.
Got it.
So now that we've finished the commercial stuff, we'll go over and show you how you actually can create an Exadata system inside of Azure. So you can see here, I'm on the home page in the portal, the Azure database or the Oracle database at Azure. I wasn't going to make that same mistake.
The same mistake. Azure database at Azure? Exactly.
The Oracle database at Azure service is right here. I can get into it. What you can also see is if you search for it, you don't know how to find it, Oracle database at Azure is there. So it's a fully integrated service into Azure. Now I'll go and I'll create an Exadata system. So we'll start by creating the infrastructure. I don't really want to talk about all of the nuance of creating Exadata. We have other sessions here for that this week. But what I want to emphasize here, this is Azure, right? You can see here I'm picking an Azure region, an Azure availability zone. I can configure that Exadata. Here we see it's a 252 OCPU system. So this is one of the big quarter rack Exadata systems that we support. We can pick some maintenance options, consent, put some tagging on if we want. And then after this validation, we can go create it. Now, creating Exadata takes a while, so we don't really want to wait for that. But I've got one that we've created previously just to show you after that what you can do with it. So here I have this Exadata infra. This is like the one that we just created. Within it, you can see it's fully integrated with Azure. You can look at what VM clusters you have on it. The VM clusters are where the databases live. And then within these VM clusters, you can see some of the integrations that you guys talked about a little bit earlier about the monitoring and the observability data being piped into Azure services. So if you want to use your Azure stack, your Azure alerting, if you're integrated with that, you can just use that.
Right, and I think Corey and I talked about this a little bit, but if you are a developer, you don't necessarily have to go through the portal experience. You can just use normal SDKs or APIs.
Yep, so the portal is just an easy way to show it, but like Corey said, PowerShell, SDK, API, whatever way that you interact with Azure, it's supported for Oracle Database at Azure.
Awesome.
So the last thing I want to show you before I step off is just that it works. So we've previously created this VM inside of Azure. We've put it on the same VNet as the Exadata system. And I've just opened Oracle SQL Developer, and I'm going to run this query. And it's showing you some results.
Right.
And this might not look that impressive, but if you rewind on your timeline, in the past, you would have to do some networking between Azure and Oracle data centers, and you'd have to hire people to figure out how to operate that thing. It would be very challenging. But all I had to do to get this working is spin up a VM in Azure that's on the same network.
Right, and that's what we talked about, right? The sort of the deep integration where in the previous iterations of this, you had to go and plumb everything together. But now, essentially, it's just as simple as going in and logging in and launching the stuff.
Yeah, so you can procure it fairly easily, manage it using Azure, and then it just works once it's up.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
And so I think we talked a little bit about the actual resource management of Exadata. What I want to do is get Corey back on here to talk a little bit about the Azure side of the equation and show some of the integration pieces of what you can possibly do with Azure Oracle databases. Corey?
All right. Oh,
Welcome back.
again. I get music again, a second time. All right, well, I'm excited to be here and show you a few things here that we've been working on. So first of all, as sort of Karan mentioned, I've got an app up and running, and so you can see here's kind of a view of what this app looks like. You see I've got sort of the Oracle Exadata running here in the back end. I've got Oracle Autonomous also running, but then you can sort of see the layout, the overall network setup, and then of course it's running an Azure Kubernetes service that's actually managing the application itself. And so let me actually show you what I've got here. So this is actually the running Azure Kubernetes service. So we'll go to the laptop here. Perfect. And so here you see I've got sort of an AKS solution running inside Azure. And so I'm going to click here on Node Pools and just show you a little bit about what's happening behind the scenes. And so here you can see I've got 30 nodes running against this. It is running, the SKU here is standard D8DS. And
Great naming, by the way.
Thank you.
Yep.
At Azure. DS, D8, no, just kidding. Didn't think that one was funny, the at Azure. Okay, anyway, we'll keep going. I'm gonna ignore it and move on. All right, and so if I click in here, you can sort of see the setup that I've got for this AKS environment. And so I've got auto scaling turned on, and I've got, again, these 30 pods per node. And so if I actually look up here, I can manage it like upgrade Kubernetes or update my image. But instead, I also want to kind of just look here at the scale node pool. And this is where, again, I can set things like auto scale and configure it in that way and manage sort of all of that solution. Now, why does this matter? Well, here I've set up a single dashboard for my entire application, right? And this is what is actually so exciting about this announcement. This is truly a single dashboard. It has both the performance of the Exadata running over here, and so you can see I've got my CPU utilization, and I've got sort of the amount of SQL queries that are running, about 1 million here a minute, and so you can see that's running here on the left, and I can track that. And it's side by side with what's running on my AKS, on my Kubernetes service, and so you can see my overall CPU utilization over here, and my memory usage as well. And so this allows me to now understand, okay, my single app end-to-end, I can view it in one place, all here in the Azure Monitor experience, and then I can manage whatever auto-scaling I may want to do across the two environments to be able to create this single app environment. And so that's what's so exciting about what
And I think if you're like sort of a super deep Exadata DBA admin, and the existing tools you already have just work as they are today.
Correct,
right?
correct. So yeah, exactly. So this enables you to look at an app level view, but of course, if you're going to go manage the depths of the Exadata itself, which I would call Karan in that situation, and so then you can use the existing tools because again, it is just the OCI experience underneath, right? And so it's exactly what you'd expect there. Okay. So fine, my app is up and running. But now we get to maybe the interesting part, or at least what I think interesting, is now I want to add AI to it. And so at this point, the computer will just add it for it. No, just kidding. If I move over here, what I've actually set up is, as the Grab Dish company, I would like to set up a Copilot, which is what everyone would like to set up. And so this Copilot is going to be based on GPT-4, and it's basically going to be built to be able to answer questions from customers online about the different products that they have, right? And so let me just start here with the question, do you have anything sweet, okay? And so I'll go ahead and hit enter on that. Now, while that's running, I'm going to show you a few things. So here, this is what we call prompt flow in Azure. And so this is the Azure AI Studio, and it's prompt flow. And the reason for that is that you can see up here, I take all kinds of inputs and build out my prompt based on these inputs coming from different data sources, right? And so first, I'm getting the list of products that this company has, that GrabDish has, right? And so this is actually going to be leveraging Azure Cognitive Search, and so that's leveraging that for the actual products, the product catalog that's available. But I'm also going in and looking at the customer information. Who is this customer? And here, what I'm excited to show you is I am using an Oracle connection, and I'm leveraging and pulling the data straight from the Exadata running inside Azure. And so I'm finding out who the customer is, and so you can see I've got a select statement for the string that I'm running. And if I actually open up the results of this output, you can see here it's telling me the details of who this customer is, right? And so you can see here it's Emily. I have the email address, the location where they live, age, et cetera. So this is all within that Oracle database. I'm also trying to learn what are the previous orders that this person has made. And that, again, is in the Oracle database. And so there you can see, again, I'm using sort of the same Oracle connection and a similar select option. And down here you can see I've got my answer that this person has ordered peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in the past. OK, so all that comes in, and that all goes into my prompt generation. And so this is where the magic really happens. What is really dictating the large language model on what to do is a bunch of text based on that data that came in, right? And so if I show you over here, and let me actually slide this over to the right so you can actually see it. You see here, first I'm going to start with some safety, right, making sure that it's based in fact, right? I want to go make sure that the LLM is only going to use factual information. First of all, it's not going to get into a disagreement with the user. If it does, just cancel, get out of there. So you don't want to get into a fight with the user. But then you can see here, I pull in the documentation. So this is the product list. I also pull in previous purchases. So that's the data that came from the Oracle database. And I also pull in the customer context. And based on that, so let me show you here, if I pull in the customer, oh, that line got really big. If I pull in the customer context here, you can see the guidance that we're giving the LLM is reference other items that are purchased by name and description, and you know, be concise, and by the way, throw in some appropriate emojis, right? And so this is the actual coding language here for this LLM in the prompt generation. And so after that, I can now run it, and I actually did here, and so let me slide this back over. If I can just move this here. Where is it? There it is.
It's very usable.
Yeah, so anyway. Oh, see? OK, let me slide it back all the way. OK, great. And so let me zoom in here, and then this is the answer that I got. Of course, Emily, using the name, throwing in some emojis, just as it was instructed. Based on your previous purchases, you might enjoy our apple pie catalog. It's a sweet crust filled with apple slices and sliced apples and spices, baked until golden brown, perfect for satisfying your sweet tooth based on that previous order. And so you can see sort of that learning and how that prompt is generated. Now, if I wanted to go run a test of this, and I want to go run a whole bunch of different questions, that also can be done here. And so I can do sort of a batch run and be able to go in and run this a whole bunch of times. And so you see I really like a corn dog, I love nachos, and so that then is giving me, hey, John Smith, our nachos are amazing, and so very personalized. You may say, well, how do I validate that this is giving the right answer, right? This is all sort of computer generated, so how do I figure that out? So we also offer that as part of prompt flow. So you can go in and you can actually determine things like groundedness. And so what that means is how much is this based in fact? And it gives a number between 1 and 5. Right? And so basically it takes the answer, it takes what the data that came in and said how factually accurate is it? Now you may be saying to me, well, Corey, that's great, but I don't want to have to do that every single time. How do I actually go and determine the groundedness? Well, you may or may not be shocked by this, but to do that, we actually use another LLM. So we actually use prompt flow to generate another LLM whose entire job it is to read the output of the first LLM and give a score. And this is actually how we validate all of our large language model, all of our solutions at Microsoft, is we use other LLMs to validate the quality of the first LLM, and you can do that at scale and get those answers out. And so all of this, of course, powered and possible here as part of my prompt flow. And to give you a sense of sort of how easy it is to create some of these things, you can go in and create. You can create your own evaluations. We've got evaluation for things like relevance or similarity or groundedness, as I mentioned. And once you're inside the prompt flow, getting back to sort of that connection to Oracle, the ability to go in and connect this into your Oracle solution is incredibly simple. Right there, you see, I've just got my Oracle Query Tool, extensible, allows me to connect that Oracle Exadata underneath. And so with that, you've got your Copilot up and running with the power of Oracle Exadata behind it.
Cool, fantastic, Corey. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
So I think you saw kind of the possibilities there. Of course, having the ability to build new applications, having the ability to migrate everything from your on-premise to the cloud makes it much, much more simple. You also heard from Voya about how this is very exciting for them and how it allows them to build new applications and migrate their existing Oracle footprint. What's next? So the things that we're going to be working on over the next several months is going to be things like capabilities like Autonomous, Golden Gate, Data Save, other capabilities in the ecosystem of data services across Oracle that essentially encompass the database portfolio. Additionally, we've also talked a little bit about how we're going to be launching in North America and Europe with a couple of regions with multiple AZ support. And then we're going to be expanding this to 12 regions that are actually interconnected across the globe. And then we will take customer feedback to expand beyond that. And then again, you have access to these data migration tools such as Zero Data Loss Migration to be able to migrate these applications into Azure using Oracle Database Services as well. So hopefully that was helpful. If you want to learn more, go ahead and talk to your Oracle rep. Go ahead and talk to your Azure rep. Thank you again, and have a great Cloud World. Bye.